I swear, the whole thing started with one sentence I'd heard 100 times before, but that afternoon it hit different. "Evan, stay after practice. I need a word." Coach Ramirez said it so casually, wiping sweat off his forehead as the rest of the guys grabbed their stuff. But the look he gave me wasn't casual. It lingered a second too long. Steady, unreadable, almost like he was deciding something. And my stomach did that stupid flip it had been doing around him for months. I tried to play it cool. Sure, coach." No one else seemed to notice anything weird. The guys were too busy trash-talking about who bricked the most shots during scrimmage. I shoved my water bottle into my backpack and pretended not to think about the fact that I was suddenly hyper-aware of every drop of sweat rolling down my back. Practice had been rough. End-of-season conditioning, coach pushing us harder than usual. And honestly, I'd had a terrible day even before stepping into the gym, failed a stats quiz, spilled coffee on myself, and my roommate had eaten the leftovers I'd been looking forward to all week. So the last thing I needed was coach deciding I needed a word. But the way he said it, it didn't sound like a lecture. When the last guy finally disappeared through the double doors, the whole gym fell into that weird, hollow quiet. The kind where you can still hear bouncing basketballs in your head even though everything's dead still. Coach stood near the bleachers with his hands on his hips, breathing steady, his tank top soaked through. His shoulders looked bigger than usual. Or maybe I was just noticing them more today. I wasn't proud of it, but yeah, I noticed. "Come here for a second," he said, his voice lower now, calmer than the usual courtside barking. I walked over, wiping my palms on my shorts, suddenly wishing I didn't look like I had just crawled out of a washing machine. My hair was plastered to my forehead. My shirt was clinging to my chest. And Coach looked like he hadn't even broken a sweat. He took a breath like he was trying to choose his words carefully. "You've seemed off lately," he said finally. I blinked. "Off?" He nodded. "Yeah, not bad, just distracted. You're usually sharper. Didn't want to call you out in front of everyone." My face warmed. I looked at the floor. "Yeah, I guess I've been dealing with some stuff." He hummed softly, then sat down on the bottom bleacher. Not the usual posture of a pissed-off coach. More like a person. Someone trying to connect. "Sit," he said, patting the spot next to him. I hesitated. Not because I thought it was weird, but because it was weird how much I wanted to sit there. Close. Alone. With him. Still, I sat. The air was different up close. Warmer. And he smelled like cedar deodorant and sweat. Not unpleasant, just very him. "What's going on?" he asked quietly. Most people ask that like small talk. Coach asked it like he expected a real answer. "It's nothing big," I muttered. "Just stress. School, roommate stuff. I'm fine." He gave me a look that said, "You're not fine, but I'm not going to push yet." His knee brushed mine as he shifted. It shouldn't have meant anything. It meant too much. "You know I'm here if you need anything," he said. "Doesn't have to be basketball related." My throat felt tight. I nodded. "Thanks." For a moment, neither of us talked. Just the hum of the overhead lights filling the silence. Then, Coach exhaled slowly, eyes fixed ahead like he was gearing up to say something important or risky. "There's one more thing," he said. My chest tightened. He glanced at me, then away again, jaw flexing like he was nervous. A look I'd never seen on him. "You've been pushing yourself too hard," he said. "And I think I know why." My heart thudded. "Why?" He hesitated. And when he spoke again, his voice was lower, almost tentative. "Because you don't talk to anyone. You bottle things up. You carry everything like you're alone." He paused, eyes flicking to mine. "But you're not." I swallowed. Hard. Coach, studying my face like that, made my pulse spike. His eyes were dark, steady, knowing, and the closeness between us suddenly felt way too charged for a quiet gym after practice. "I see you, Evan," he added softly. My breath caught. No one talked to me like that. No one looked at me like that. Then he did something that made my whole body freeze. He lifted a hand, slowly, like giving me time to pull away if I wanted to. and he brushed a single stray bead of sweat from my temple with his thumb. A tiny gesture. Too intimate, too deliberate. My heart slammed against my ribs. Coach dropped his hand immediately, like he realized what he'd done, or what it looked like, and stood quickly. "Sorry," he muttered. "I didn't mean," but he didn't finish the sentence. And he didn't need to, because the air between us felt electric in a way that absolutely wasn't coach-player normal. He cleared his throat, trying to regain composure. "I want you to stay for a bit," he said. "I need to show you something." My pulse jumped. "What exactly?" Coach looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Part concern, part something else entirely. "Just trust me," he said quietly. "It's important." And as he walked toward his office, expecting me to follow, my legs felt weightless, like I'd just stepped into something I couldn't undo. Something I wasn't sure I wanted to undo. The weirdest thing about following Coach into his office wasn't the fact that we were alone, or that my heart was punching holes in my chest. It was that the whole situation felt like it had been building for a while. Little looks, little moments I'd brushed off as nothing. But now, with each step echoing across the empty gym floor, it was impossible to pretend this was nothing. Coach Ramirez unlocked his office door, pushed it open, and flicked on the light. The small room smelled like coffee, leather, and that faint cologne he wore. Warm and subtle, the kind you don't notice until you're close. He motioned for me to come in. I stepped inside, trying not to stare at how cramped the room felt with just the two of us. The desk, the filing cabinet, the bulletin board, all normal. But the way Coach stood there, leaning slightly against the desk, arms crossed over his chest, eyes steady on me, that part wasn't normal. "Close the door," he said, his voice low. I hesitated for a split second, not out of fear, but because closing the door felt like crossing a line. But his eyes softened, and something in me trusted him. So I did. The soft click of the latch sent a shiver down my spine. Coach let out a breath, rubbing the back of his neck like he didn't quite know where to start. "Look," he began. "I want to show you something, but I need you to understand why first." I nodded slowly. "Okay." He didn't look at me right away. Instead, he looked at his hands, like he was choosing every word carefully. "You carry tension in your body," he said. "Not normal athlete tension, something deeper." I felt my stomach tighten. "What do you mean?" Coach stepped toward me, slow and deliberate. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't joking. He was studying me. The way my shoulders curved in. The way I held my breath without noticing. "You ever been around someone who's stressed so constantly they don't even realize how stiff their body is?" he asked, his voice soft. "That's you." I opened my mouth to argue, but he held up a hand. "I'm not criticizing you," he said. "I'm trying to help." My heart thudded hard. "Help? How?" Coach reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a small rectangular object and set it on the table with a soft thump. A muscle roller. One of those handheld deep-pressure ones trainers use. Only this one wasn't standard gym equipment. It was the upgraded kind. High-end. Personal. "I use this when players get too tense or injure something," he explained. "But I don't usually offer it unless I think someone really needs it." I stared at it, then at him. "So you want to use it on me?" He didn't answer at first. Instead, he took a step closer, then another, until he was standing right in front of me. Close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off his body. Close enough that I had to tilt my head slightly to meet his eyes. "You're carrying a lot," he said quietly. "More than you're saying. And I can see it because, well, I notice things about you." My pulse spiked hard. He noticed things. "About me?" Coach exhaled slowly. "Let me loosen the tension in your shoulders. Your back. Just enough for you to breathe again." I swallowed. "Right here? Now?" "Here," he said, voice firm but gentle. "And now." Before I could respond, he reached up, his hand hovering by my shoulder, waiting. He wasn't touching me yet, but the heat of him was already sinking into my skin. "Can I?" he asked. Two simple words, but they hit me harder than anything else tonight. I nodded. His fingers slid onto my shoulder. Firm, warm, grounding. My breath caught. He pressed gently, testing how tight the muscle was, and his eyes flicked to mine in surprise. "Jesus, Evan," he murmured. "How long have you been carrying this?" I let out a shaky exhale I didn't even know I'd been holding. "I don't know." He nodded like that confirmed something he suspected. Then he moved behind me, so close I could feel his breath graze my neck. His hands settled on both shoulders now, thumbs digging in with an expert touch. "Tell me if anything hurts," he said softly. It didn't hurt. It made my chest feel light and heavy at the same time. His fingers moved slowly, deeply, finding knots I didn't know I had. Every time he pressed down, something inside me loosened, not just physically. There was something about being touched by someone who seemed to actually see me, someone who cared. My breath stuttered as he moved lower, his thumbs sweeping across the tops of my shoulder blades. His hands were strong, sure, confident, but what made my heart pound was the gentleness beneath it. He leaned in slightly. "You doing okay?" "Yeah," I whispered. "Just feels weird." "Weird?" he asked, his voice warm. "Or good?" I hesitated. Then quietly, "Both." I felt him pause. Not stop. Just pause. His thumbs pressed a little deeper, slower. "It's okay for something to feel good, Evan," he murmured. "You don't have to brace yourself all the time." My breath trembled. Something in the way he said it. Soft, careful. Like he wasn't just talking about my shoulder. Made heat flare low in my chest. Then one of his hands slid lower, fingers tracing along my spine, slow and deliberate. Not inappropriate, not yet, but unmistakably intimate. His voice was barely above a whisper now. "I asked you to stay after practice because you looked like you needed someone." He paused. "And I didn't want you leaving like that." "Not today." I swallowed hard. "Why today?" Coach exhaled behind me, his breath ghosting across my neck. "Because," he said quietly, "today you looked like you were about to break." My hands curled at my sides. "And," he continued, even softer now, "because I can't stand seeing you hurt." He let the words hang there. Heavy, dangerous, true. And I realized, with a jolt of panic and something else entirely, this wasn't just about my shoulders. And it wasn't just about tension. Something was shifting. Something neither of us could take back. Coach's hands slowed, then paused completely. Not because he was done, but because he was thinking. I could feel it in the way his fingers hovered against my back, the way his breath shifted, the way the air thickened like he was about to cross a line he'd been towing for too long. "Evan," he said quietly. The sound of my name in his voice did something to me. Something I wasn't ready for. Something I'd been trying not to admit for months. I turned my head slightly, just enough to see him from the corner of my eye. His face was closer than I expected. Close enough that I could see the faint stubble along his jaw, the way a strand of damp hair clung to his forehead, the unsure flicker in his eyes that I had never seen on him before. "What?" I breathed. His jaw tightened, like he wanted to say something but wasn't sure if he should. "I can stop," he murmured, "if this is too much." Too much? My whole body was buzzing. My chest felt lighter than it had in weeks. My stomach was twisted in knots I didn't understand but didn't want to undo. And the worst part, or the best part, was the way I didn't want him to step back. Not even an inch. "No," I said, barely more than a whisper. "Don't stop." He didn't move. Not for a moment. Then he let out a slow breath. Not relief, not frustration, something in between. Something that said this wasn't all in my head. "Okay," he said softly. His hand returned to my upper back, slower this time. Not firm like before, more like he was learning the shape of me. His thumb brushed along my spine, a gentle, almost careful touch. I swallowed hard. This felt different, not like a coach helping a player. not like anything I'd ever felt in my life. He moved to stand slightly beside me, his body angled so his shoulder brushed mine. His fingers traced down my back again, and this time, when they paused at my lower spine, his breath caught the faintest bit. Like he surprised himself. I felt my pulse spike. "Evan," he said again, quieter, more strained. "You shouldn't hold everything alone. You don't have to." I forced out a shaky laugh. "What makes you think I'm holding anything?" He finally met my eyes fully. No hesitation, no professional mask, just raw concern, and something warmer beneath it. "Because I've been watching you," he said. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Watching?" I echoed. He nodded, stepping just slightly closer. "Yeah. And before you think I mean that in a weird way, I don't. I mean, I notice you. More than I should." My breath hitched, more than he should. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was loaded. Heavy. Like the kind of silence right before something changes. He ran a hand down the back of his neck, then let it fall, fingers brushing mine for just a second. An accidental touch that didn't feel accidental at all. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath. "I'm trying to be careful here." I frowned slightly. "Careful about what?" His eyes stayed locked on mine, unwavering now. "You," he said simply. Everything inside me stuttered. "Me?" I repeated, my voice small. Coach nodded once, slowly. "Yeah, you." My mouth felt dry. "Why?" His chest rose and fell once, deeply, like he was making a decision in real time. Then he stepped closer. Close enough that his arm grazed mine. Close enough that I felt the heat of him seep through my skin. Close enough that the whole world shrank to just the two of us in that tiny office. "Because you matter," he said. "More than I planned, more than I wanted." My pulse jumped, my thoughts scattered. I didn't know what to do, so I whispered the only thing my shaking voice could manage. "Coach." He closed his eyes for half a second at the sound of it, like it hit him somewhere deep. He didn't want to acknowledge. When he opened them again, his expression was different. Softer. More dangerous. "I need you to be honest with me," he murmured. "Right now. Just this once." My throat tightened. "About what?" His gaze flicked to my lips. Quick, subtle but unmistakable, before rising back to my eyes. "About what you want from me." For a moment, all I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat. My vision tunneled, the edges of the room blurring. My hands felt weak. My chest was hot and cold at the same time. "What I want," I whispered. He nodded. "Yeah. I can't help you if you don't tell me." "Help me." He kept using that word, but the way he was looking at me didn't feel like help. It felt like tension. Like heat. Like a line we were already halfway across without meaning to be. I opened my mouth, but before I could say a single word, Coach took another step closer, closing the last bit of space between us, and his hand slid gently to the back of my neck. My breath caught instantly. His fingers rested there lightly, barely touching me, like he was giving me every chance to step away. "Evan," he whispered, voice low enough to shake something inside me. "Tell me if I need to stop." I didn't move. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. And in the charged, electric silence that followed, I realized something terrifying. I didn't want him to stop. His hand rested on the back of my neck so lightly it barely counted as a touch. But somehow it felt like the most intense physical sensation I'd felt in months, maybe years. My breath hitched, my skin tingled, and every thought I'd been trying to shove down for so long suddenly pushed to the surface all at once. I should have stepped back. I should have said something to break the tension. But all I could do was stand there, caught in the gravity of him, feeling his thumb graze the edge of my hairline in a slow, careful motion that sent a shiver down my spine. "Evan," he murmured. God, the way he said my name, like he had been wanting to say it like that for a long time. "I don't want to misread you," he continued, his voice impossibly low. "So you have to tell me if this is something you don't want." I swallowed hard. My throat was too tight. My voice felt trapped somewhere deep, like speaking would make all of this real. And that terrified me just as much as the idea of him pulling his hand away. I finally forced out a whisper. "I don't want you to stop." His fingers tensed, just barely, like he'd been waiting for those words. Then he exhaled slowly, and his touch grew firmer. His thumb stroked the back of my neck in a way that made my knees weak. "You don't know how long I've wanted to hear that," he said. I felt my pulse spike. "Hear what?" I whispered. "That you're not afraid of me," he said. "Not afraid of this." I couldn't tell if he meant the tension between us or the fact that he was my coach. Maybe both. But before I could respond, he stepped even closer. So close that the front of his shirt brushed mine. The heat of his body pressed against me, warm and overwhelming. His scent, clean sweat, cedar deodorant, and something darker, filled my head. I felt dizzy. "Turn around," he said softly. It wasn't a command. It was a request. But my body reacted like it was instinct. I turned. Slow. Uncertain. He moved behind me again, and for a moment I thought he was going to continue the massage, go back to the safe version of what we were doing before everything shifted. But instead, he rested one hand on my shoulder, and the other came around my side, just barely brushing my ribs. An inhale ripped through my chest. He wasn't pulling me closer, but God, it felt like he could. Like the smallest shift, and I'd be leaning back into him completely. "Evan," he said, his breath grazing the back of my ear, "you have no idea what you do to me." My heart dropped straight to my stomach. "What'd I do to you?" I choked out. He let out a soft, almost frustrated sound. "Yeah." His hand slid a little higher up my side. Deliberate this time, testing, asking without words. "When you walk into practice looking exhausted but refusing to complain," he murmured. "When you push through drills like the weight of the world is on your shoulders." His fingers pressed into my waist gently. "When you look at me like you want something you won't admit." My breath came in short, uneven bursts. "I notice everything, Evan." My whole body felt like it was vibrating. "I didn't think you saw me like that," I whispered. "I tried not to," he admitted, "for a long time." His fingers curled slightly against my side, drawing me an inch backward. Not enough to pin me against him, but enough for me to feel the heat of his chest against my back. The air punched out of my lungs. Then his voice dipped even lower. "But today? Watching you drag through practice? Watching you shut down and pretend you're fine?" His thumb brushed slow circles into my hip. I couldn't pretend anymore. I shivered, visibly. He noticed. "Cold?" he asked softly. "No," I whispered. "Good." His hand moved again, sliding up my ribs, fingers splayed, warm and steady. Every inch he touched felt like it woke up after being numb for months. "Why did you really ask me to stay?" I managed. He hesitated, only briefly. "Because you looked like you needed someone to hold you together," he said quietly. "And I wanted to be that person." My breath stuttered. "Is that okay?" he added, his lips so close to my ear that the words felt like they were being spoken into me. I didn't answer. Instead, without thinking, without planning, I leaned back just slightly. Barely an inch, but Coach responded instantly, like he had been waiting for that one small movement to give him permission. He slid his hand fully around my waist and pulled me back against him. My breath caught. His chest rested against my back, solid and warm. His arm wrapped around me, holding me in a way that wasn't romantic. Not exactly, but close enough to make my whole body tense and relax at the same time. "Heaven," he murmured again, this time right against my neck. I closed my eyes. Everything felt too intense, too close, too real. He let his forehead rest against the back of my head, his breath warm and uneven. "I'm trying to go slow," he whispered. "I swear I am." I swallowed hard. "Why?" His arm tightened just slightly. "Because," he said, "if I don't, I'm afraid I won't be able to stop." A full-body shiver ripped straight through me. I didn't move away. I leaned back even more, and that was all it took. Coach let out a slow, shaky breath, the kind that sounded like restraint slipping, and his hand slid up my chest, fingers spreading over my sternum, gentle but claiming. "Evan," he murmured, voice rough now, "tell me you want this, too." I opened my mouth, but no words came out, only a quiet, shaky inhale. He felt it, and the noise he made in response was low, warm, almost pained. "Yeah," he breathed, tightening his arm around me. "That's what I thought." Coach didn't move for a long moment. He just held me there against him, his chest rising and falling against my back, the warmth of his arm circling me like it belonged there. I could feel every breath he took, hear the faint, shaky exhale he was trying to control. It was careful, too careful, like he was walking a tightrope, and one wrong step would send both of us over the edge. "Evan?" he murmured, his voice rougher now, the restraint in it audible. I swallowed. "Yeah?" His forehead stayed against the back of my head, his hands still splayed across my chest. Warm, steady, grounding. "You don't understand how long I've been trying not to do this," he whispered. My heart nearly punched through my ribs. "Do what?" His thumb brushed slowly across my chest, a tiny movement, barely noticeable. But somehow it felt like he had run his whole hand down my spine. "This," he breathed. He slid his hand from my chest to my stomach. Slow, deliberate. His palm rested just above my waist, not pulling me closer, not pushing further. Just there, claiming space he had clearly imagined taking for a while. My breath shook. "And I shouldn't," he added quietly, guilt threading through his tone. "I know I shouldn't." I turned my head slightly, enough that I could see him from the corner of my eye. "Then why are you?" His jaw clenched. His eyes flicked down like he was trying to find his balance. "Because you leaned into me," he said. "And I can't pretend I didn't feel that." My face flushed hot. "I didn't mean—" "You did," he said softly, not accusing, just stating the truth. "And it's okay. I just need you to understand what this means." I shifted in his hold, feeling his arm tighten instinctively like he didn't want to let go. "What does it mean?" I whispered. He let out a breath that sounded like a confession sliding out of him. "It means I care about you more than I should," he said. "More than I'm allowed to." My pulse spiked. "And it means," he continued, his lips brushing the shell of my ear as he spoke, "that if I go any further, I'm not sure I can go back to being just your coach." A slow chill, not fear, something deeper, spread through me. The words were dangerous and honest. "Do you want to go back?" I whispered. His grip on me tightened just slightly, fingers flexing against my stomach. "No," he said, barely audible. "That's the problem." The honesty hit me so hard I almost forgot to breathe. I turned fully now, slipping out of his arms but only to face him. And when he saw my expression, the confusion, the fear, the want, something shifted in him. His shoulders relaxed, his face softened. He wasn't the intense, unshakable coach in that moment. He was just a man who cared too much. He reached up and cupped the side of my neck with one warm, calloused hand. Careful again, giving me every chance to back away. "You don't owe me anything," he said quietly. "Not pressure, not an answer, not this." His thumb brushed just under my jaw, gentle in a way that made my breath catch. "I'm only doing this because I think you need someone," he whispered. "Someone who actually sees you." My chest tightened painfully. "Coach," I murmured. He closed his eyes at the word, just for a second, like it hit somewhere vulnerable. "You can call me Diego," he said, still barely above a whisper. My stomach flipped. "And if I call you that?" I asked. "What then?" His eyes opened slowly, darker now, warmer, too honest. "Then," he said, "I stop pretending I don't want you." The room went still, completely still. I didn't think. Couldn't. I stepped closer. Just one step, but it was enough. His hand slid from my jaw to the back of my neck. Not pulling, not forcing, just holding. And when I didn't pull away, he let his forehead rest against mine. Not a kiss. Not yet. Just contact. Intimate. Careful. Electric. "Evan," he whispered, breath hot against my lips. "Tell me to stop if you don't want this." My voice was barely there. "I'm not telling you to stop." His breath hitched, a sound half relief, half surrender. His thumb traced my jaw again, slow and deliberate. "Then let me go slow," he murmured. "Let me take care of you. Just for tonight. Just this once, if that's all you want." I swallowed hard. "I don't know what I want," I admitted. His other hand came up, resting gently on my lower back, warm and steady. "That's okay," he said. "I know what I want." He exhaled, and his breath ghosted across my lips. "I want you safe," he whispered. "I want you honest." His fingers tightened just slightly on my back. "And I want," he added, voice barely audible, "to be close to you. Really close." My heart pounded so loud I thought he could hear it. "Then be close," I whispered back. A low sound, almost a groan, escaped him as he pulled me in, his body pressing against mine in a slow, deliberate motion that made my knees go weak. He didn't kiss me. Not yet. But his lips brushed my cheek, barely there, a warm, trembling breath against my skin that made everything inside me twist and burn. "Evan," he murmured again, voice breaking just slightly. "I'm right here," I whispered, and for the first time that night he let himself lean into me. For a long moment we didn't move. Not really. We just breathed into the tiny space between us, the space that didn't even feel real anymore. Coach Diego kept his forehead resting gently against mine, the warmth of him seeping through every part of me. His hands stayed exactly where they were, one on the back of my neck, thumb brushing slow, careful circles, the other on my lower back, steady and warm like he'd been holding himself back from this exact moment for months. "Evan," he said softly, the word coming out like he wasn't sure he should say it. "Yeah?" My voice cracked a little. His eyes searched mine. Really searched. Like he was trying to find something he'd been hoping to see. "You sure you want me this close?" I nodded, my chest tight. "Yeah, I'm sure." He let out the smallest breath of relief, the kind someone makes when they've been holding tension for hours, maybe days. His grip on my back tightened just a little, pulling me the smallest bit closer until our chests touched fully. The sensation hit me harder than anything so far. Being held like this, by him, careful, protective, slow. No one had held me like that in a long time. He felt it. The way my breath caught, the way my body softened against his, and his thumb brushed my neck again, slower now. "You've been carrying too much," he whispered against my cheek. "Let me take some of it tonight. Just tonight." I swallowed, my voice barely there. "How?" He didn't answer with words at first. Instead, he shifted his head slightly, his face brushing near the corner of my jaw. Not fully intentional, but not accidental either. A warm, unsteady breath escaped him, reaching my skin with a softness that made me shiver. "Like this," he murmured. My hands, which had been hovering awkwardly at my sides, finally lifted. Slowly, cautiously, I rested them on his hips. The first time I'd touched him back, he froze. Not in fear, more like surprise. Like he wasn't expecting me to touch him at all. Then he inhaled sharply, his chest rising against mine. "Evan," he said again, but this time it sounded different. Lower, breathier, like my touch had undone something in him. I tightened my grip just a little, fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt. "I'm not running away," I whispered. That was all it took. Diego's restraint slipped, not completely, but enough for him to finally wrap both arms around my waist and pull me in fully. My body pressed against his from chest to stomach to thighs, and the sudden closeness made my breath break. "God," he murmured into my hair. "I shouldn't want this so much." But he didn't let go. He held me tighter. His hands slid up and down my back in slow, grounding motions like he was memorizing the shape of me. "You feel tense everywhere," he whispered. "I know," I breathed. He pressed his nose lightly against my temple. "Why didn't you tell me you were struggling? I didn't think you'd care." At that, he pulled back just enough to look at me, his brows drawn, eyes warm and hurt all at once. "Evan, of course I care," I shrugged, emotion tightening my voice. "You're my coach. I didn't want to be a burden." His jaw clenched. Not in anger, but in some kind of frustrated tenderness. "You're not a burden," he said firmly. "Not to me. Never to me." His hand cupped my cheek then. thumb brushing dangerously close to my lips. I held his wrist gently, my breath uneven. "I didn't know I could come to you," I whispered. His expression softened, but it also deepened, darkened, warmed. "You can," he murmured. "You always could." Silence settled between us, thick, warm, electric. Then Diego dipped his head just slightly, his lips brushing my jaw again, this time slower, more intentional, a warning. A question. His breath lingered there, warm and trembling as he whispered, "Evan, can I get a little closer?" My heart slammed painfully hard. "Yeah," I whispered, "you can." He exhaled shakily, like he'd been holding that breath for months, and moved his lips to the side of my neck. Barely touching, just a warm graze of skin to skin. Not a kiss. Not yet. But close enough that the room felt like it tilted. His fingers dug gently into my waist, steadying me. "You feel good," he murmured against my neck. "Better than I should let myself think." I shuddered visibly. He pulled back slightly, studying the way my breath shook. "You okay?" he whispered. I nodded. More than okay. His hands slid from my waist up to my ribs, fingertips brushing the hem of my shirt. "Tell me," he said softly, "if you want me to stop." I swallowed. "I won't." Something in his expression broke open at that. Something tender, something wanting, something held back too long. Slowly, carefully, he lifted my chin with 2 fingers. He leaned forward. Close. Closer. His lips hovered less than an inch from mine. "Evan," he whispered, voice trembling now. A knock sounded at the gym doors. We both froze. My heart stopped. His eyes snapped to the office window. The knock came again. Louder this time. Coach's grip tightened on my waist. His voice dropped to a low, controlled whisper. "Don't move." I didn't. He stepped in front of me, shielding me from view as he peered through the small office window. Someone was walking through the gym. Someone who wasn't supposed to be here. And the look on Diego's face said everything. We were not alone. Coach's whole body went tense the second he saw the shadow move across the gym. His hand, which had just been on my waist a moment ago, dropped away. Not roughly, but fast. Protective, focused. I stood there frozen, barely breathing, my heart thundering loud enough I was sure it echoed off the office walls. "Who is it?" I whispered. He didn't answer right away. He leaned closer to the narrow window in the office door, trying to get a better angle. I could see the muscles in his back tighten through his shirt. Another knock echoed through the gym, not at the office door, at the gym entrance, like someone expected the place to be locked. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath. "Is it another coach?" I asked, stepping closer without thinking. He glanced over his shoulder quickly, and when he saw how close I'd gotten, his expression softened for a split second before he gestured for me to stay put. "No," he said. "Not a coach." I felt a spike of nervous heat climb my spine. "Then who?" "Probably the janitor," he said, voice low. "But if he sees you in here this late, behind a closed door with me." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Everything we'd been doing, everything that almost happened, would be impossible to explain. Another shadow moved past the office window. Footsteps, slow. Like someone doing their last rounds, checking lights, checking doors, checking everything. Coach stepped between me and the window again, placing himself just slightly in front of me, instinctively shielding me. My chest tightened. "Just stay quiet," he murmured. "He'll leave in a minute," I nodded, trying to slow my breathing, but my pulse was a wreck. My whole body felt wired, hot, too aware of how close Diego was. Too aware of everything we had been doing seconds earlier. For a moment, neither of us spoke. We didn't move, we just listened. The gym was too quiet. Every footstep echoed. Every sound felt amplified. Coach's fingers brushed mine. Accidentally, I think. But he didn't pull away fast. He let them stay there for a heartbeat. Another. Like reassurance, like I'm here. Then the footsteps stopped. Right in front of the office door. My lungs clamped. Coach's jaw clenched as he stood straighter, muscles tight. A soft rattle. Someone testing the doorknob. I instinctively stepped backward, bumping lightly into the filing cabinet. Coach turned his head just slightly, enough to whisper without moving his lips. "He won't come in if it's locked." I nodded, even though my heart was trying to escape through my throat. Another rattle. Then, a heavy pause. Then footsteps again, moving away. Slowly, cautiously. The gym door opened, closed, echoed. Then, silence. Coach exhaled, long and quiet, his shoulders dropping. "It's all right," he murmured. "He's gone." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. My hands were shaking, just slightly, adrenaline humming under my skin. Coach turned toward me, scanning my face. "You okay?" I nodded quickly. "Yeah, just didn't expect any of that." His expression softened, then something else flickered across his face. Worry, hesitation, confusion, want. A mix of everything we hadn't said yet. He reached for my arm, slow, cautious, his touch grounding. "Evan," he said quietly, "we need to talk about what almost happened." My chest tightened. "You regret it?" He stepped closer. Close enough that the air warmed between us again, and shook his head firmly. "No, I don't regret a single thing." The words hit me so hard I almost swayed. "But," he added, softer now, "I need to be sure you understand what this means." I swallowed. "I do." "You don't," he said gently. "Not yet." He slid a thumb over the inside of my wrist. A small, steadying gesture that made my breath shake. "I'm your coach," he said. "I'm older. I should be the one stopping this." His voice dropped. "But when you lean into me like that, when you look at me the way you did," he trailed off, his jaw tightening. "I'm not as strong as I want to be." I stepped closer, my voice quiet. "You don't have to pretend with me." He drew in a breath, like my words hit him deeper than he expected. "Evan, we crossed a line tonight, even if nobody saw." I nodded. "I know, and if we keep going," he said, "there's no going back." I felt heat crawl into my face. Not embarrassment, something deeper. "So don't go back," I whispered. He froze. His hand tightened around my wrist. Not painfully, just like he was holding himself together. "Evan," he said, my name sounding like both a warning and a confession. I stepped into him fully now, chest close to his, our breaths mixing. "You didn't want to stop," I whispered. "And neither did I." His eyes flicked to my lips. That same quick, desperate flicker as before, and a soft, pained sound escaped him. "We can't do this," he said, but he didn't step away. "I know," I whispered, but I didn't step away either. He closed his eyes, exhaling slowly like he was fighting himself. "I'm trying to protect you," he murmured. "I don't need protection from you," I said. His eyes opened, and the look he gave me made my stomach twist. "That's exactly what you do," he whispered. Silence again, thick, charged, unspoken. Then, slowly, carefully, as though he were touching something breakable, he brought his hand up and rested it against my cheek. "Let me take you home," he said quietly. "You shouldn't walk alone this late. And we can finish talking there, somewhere private, somewhere we won't get interrupted." My pulse jumped hard. "Talking, right? Talking." I nodded slowly, unable to find my voice. He reached for the office lights, flicked them off, and opened the door, checking the gym twice before gesturing for me to follow. "Come on," he murmured. "Let's get out of here before someone else shows up." I stepped out beside him, and as we walked down the quiet hallway toward the back exit, alone, heart still pounding, shadows stretching long across the floor, I realized something with a sharp, electric certainty. This night wasn't over. Not even close. Part 8. My coach asked me to stay after practice for this. Final part, story conclusion. The hallway lights buzzed faintly above us as we walked side by side, our footsteps soft against the polished floor. It didn't feel like leaving practice. It felt like slipping out of something forbidden, something fragile, Something we were both pretending wasn't happening even as we leaned into it. Coach held the door open for me, glancing into the empty parking lot before letting me step out. The night air hit my skin, cool and sharp, grounding me just enough to realize how fast my heart was beating. Under the street lamp, he looked different. Softer around the edges, less like Coach Ramirez, the man who paced the sidelines barking orders, and more like Diego, the man who had held me against his chest minutes ago, like he wasn't sure he'd ever let go. "You all right?" he asked quietly as we crossed the lot. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if it was true. I felt wired, anxious, full of heat I didn't know how to process. "Yeah, just a lot," he hummed softly. "Yeah, it is." We reached his car, an older black SUV that somehow suited him perfectly, and he unlocked the doors with a quiet beep. I climbed into the passenger seat, my hands shaking just enough that I tucked them under my thighs so he wouldn't see. He started the engine, but for a moment he didn't put the car in gear. He just sat there, his hands on the wheel, his jaw tight like he was holding back the world. "Listen," he said suddenly, not looking at me. "Before we go anywhere, I need to be sure, really sure." I turned toward him slowly. "About what?" His grip tightened on the wheel. "About you. About us. About what tonight meant." I swallowed. It meant something. That made him look at me. Really look. "Say it again," he murmured. I felt my face heat. It meant something. His breath stuttered. He ran a hand over his face, leaning back in his seat like he was fighting the urge to reach for me. "Evan, I'm not supposed to feel this way about you. I know. I'm older. I know. I'm your coach." I hesitated. Then, softer, "I know that too." He turned fully now, one arm braced on the back of my seat, his eyes shadowed but warm. "But if I take another step," he said quietly, "I won't be able to pretend that none of this happened. And you won't either." I held his gaze, my pulse pounding. "Then don't pretend." His eyes flickered, his lips parted. A low breath escaped him. "Damn it," he whispered. And before I could react, his hand came up, cupping my jaw with a gentleness that made my whole chest clench. He brushed his thumb along my cheekbone, his touch warm, grounding, careful. "Evan," he murmured, "tell me to back off." I didn't. Couldn't. Instead, I leaned into his palm. A small, simple motion, but it said everything I didn't know how to. His breath caught. Slowly, like he was approaching something dangerous, he slid his hand to the back of my neck. Not pulling, just holding. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." He leaned forward. So slowly, I felt every second stretch out between us. His forehead touched mine. A soft press. A pause. A question. Every breath we took mixed in the warm space between our lips. And then, he lifted his head just enough to look at me. "Last chance," he whispered. "You tell me no, and I stop." I didn't say no, I didn't say anything. I just closed the last inch between us. His lips met mine in a slow, careful kiss that felt more like a confession than anything else. Not rushed, not hungry, just gentle and certain, and so full of everything we'd both been holding back. His hand tightened slightly at the back of my neck, guiding me a little closer. My fingers found his shirt, holding onto it as if I needed him to stay near. He deepened the kiss only when I leaned into him, only when I made it clear I wanted it too. And God, the warmth of him, the way he kissed like he was holding back storms, it made something inside me melt. When we finally pulled apart, our breaths tangled in the quiet cabin of the car. He rested his forehead against mine again. "Evan, I shouldn't want you like this." "But you do," I whispered. He let out a shaky laugh, soft, helpless. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, I do." His thumb brushed my lower lip, slow and deliberate, before he forced himself to sit back. "We're doing this carefully," he said. "Slow, on your terms." "And only if you want to keep going?" I nodded. "I want to." A breath of relief slipped out of him, real, deep, undeniable. "Okay," he murmured. "Then let me take you home. And tomorrow, we talk. Really talk." I smiled, heart pounding. "Okay." He put the car in gear, pulling out of the empty lot. His hand rested on the console between us, and after a moment of hesitation, I slid mine toward it. He looked over. Then he gave me the smallest smile I'd ever seen on him. Soft, warm, real, before intertwining his fingers with mine. "All right," he said quietly. "Let's go." The night swallowed us up as we drove off, the gym disappearing behind us. But everything that happened inside it lingered in the air between our hands. Something new. Something complicated. Something neither of us wanted to let go of. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone.